Okay. Welcome to the fourth annual Indy Energy Research Symposium. My name is Ginger Sigmund, and I'm the Managing Director of Indy Energy. This year's theme focuses on achieving carbon neutrality with an emphasis on global partnerships and climate justice. Over the next 2 afternoons, we will hear from world-renowned research experts and industry leaders who will share their insights, perspectives, and expertise on several important topics surrounding the urgency to tackle climate change, reduce carbon emissions, and create a clean and sustainable energy future for all. Presenters will address several key questions and offer strategies for achieving these goals. As each speaker explores their unique experiences and steps for achieving carbon neutrality, they will also address the role of partnerships and engaging the entire community so that all voices are heard and outcomes will result in the development of viable, equitable, and just solutions. After each presentation, there will be time for you to ask questions, so please hold your questions to the end of each speaker. At that time, you'll be prompted to either use the raise hand function or you can put your questions into the chat box. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to a great discussion over the next 2 days. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Professor Peter Burns. He is the Director of Indy Energy and the Henry J. Massman Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering and Earth Sciences, with a concurrent appointment in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. Professor Burns will kick us off with a brief overview of Indy Energy and some highlights of the current research initiatives at Notre Dame, as well as the university's progress in achieving carbon neutrality on campus. Dr. Burns, the floor is yours.
All right, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. I'm out in the forest at a retreat where we're talking about sustainability and trying to influence the university's strategy, and the internet connection's a little bit weak, so hopefully it will not fail us. So thank you all for coming out, and it's a great pleasure to have a chance to tell you a bit about what Indy Energy has been doing recent years, and what some of our plans are for the future. All right, so here's an outline of what I'm planning to talk about today, if the internet stays with me. First of all, just a bit of the history of the Center for Sustainable Energy, known as Indy Energy, and what we provide our faculty and students, and the makeup of our community. And then I want to focus a bit on some of the research projects that our faculty are doing that relate to the topics of this symposium. And then I'm going to finish by talking about not specifically Indy Energy's initiatives, but rather universities' initiatives to reduce our own emissions. So is it still coming through okay, Ginger?
Yes.
Excellent. Just holler if it stops. Well, I guess I won't hear you, but okay, so the history of Indy Energy. Indy Energy started in essence in 2005 as a College of Engineering Energy Center, and it grew substantially in 2010 with a large university investment, and became a university research center in 2011. Indy Energy serves basically as the umbrella organization for all the energy related research and education programs at the university. I became director in 2014. The center was, of course, well established by then. Our mission and vision are listed here. Indy Energy aims to foster and grow energy-related research, education, and outreach, and influence the national and global governments with the most pressing energy policy issues and questions of our time. And Indy Energy further aims to address global energy sustainability challenges, especially in low and middle income regions of the world. this is our team. Myself, Ginger, Managing Director, Sabash, Associate Director, Carl, who runs our electron microprobe, more about that in a bit, Kobe, our Administrative Coordinator, Ian, who runs the Research Facilities and Materials Characterization Facility, more about that in a moment, Anna, who also works in that facility, and who's our Education and Outreach Coordinator, and Barb, the Business and Communications Program Director. So these are the services that Indie Energy provides to our community. The next slide will actually show you who the community is. So research, business development, everything having to do with making our faculty more successful in securing large research projects and executing them. Education and outreach, all about our engagement with students, as well as our community and even local schools, K-12 schools in our community. The materials characterization facility, which I'll mention again in a few moments with a different slide. It's a university core facility that provides a capability for using materials of importance in energy. The strategic development and operations, and finally marketing and communications, which include this particular research symposium, as well as many different workshops, seminars, lectures, reports, etc. So our community consists of 91 faculty affiliates. University of Notre Dame faculty can choose to affiliate with us, and that brings them a variety of benefits, mostly shown on the previous slide. We have about 300 associated researchers in addition to faculty, and these are postdocs, graduate students, and so on. We interact with around 500 undergraduates in the energy studies minor, as well as funding some of their research projects and different activities. We have a sustainable energy network, which consists of a variety of campus groups and departments, and alumni and student energy board members. Research conducted by our faculty experts can be designated in one of 6 different areas. And here I'm summarizing those 6 areas: energy conversion and efficiency, smart distribution and storage, sustainable biofossil fuels, sustainable and secure nuclear, transformative solar, and transformative wind. Each of these has subcategories, as you can see, listed here. And I've distributed the faculty experts over these areas, and you can, of course, knowing that we have 91 faculty affiliates, clearly several of the faculty participate in more than one of these groups. The materials characterization facility, we started in 2011. It's basically a collection of state-of-the-art instruments that we maintain and provide access to all of our university community, as well as to external users. The facilities are really broad in their applications, from crystallographic equipment for determining atomic scale structures through, for example, our X-ray photoelectron spectrometer, which is used for studying the surfaces of compounds and getting specific information about the chemistry of those surfaces. So this facility is, well, first of all, has been very successful and is a major asset to the university. We also provide student research fellowships, and these are through endowment. So we have 3 endowments: the Vincent P. Slatt and the Eilers and the Forgash fellow endowments that provide these different opportunities for student research. So the Slatt fellowships go to undergraduates involved in any aspect of energy system and process research. They're, of course, working with our affiliated faculty. The Eilers Graduate Fellowship is for energy-related research, broadly defined, and the Forgas Fellowship specifically for solar energy research. Our energy studies minor is one of the main ways that we interact with our undergraduate population and actually enhance their experience at Notre Dame. It's a minor for undergraduates in any major at the university. It helps to prepare students to become successful leaders who understand the complexities of global energy challenges. It has a couple of required courses and that bring all the students together in 3 elective courses from a set of approved electives. On the right, you see some of our minors students in Puerto Rico, where we traveled not long before the pandemic, in fact, to study energy and other aspects of sustainability in Puerto Rico. Part of our outreach programs include this very symposium. The research symposium of Indy Energy was started in 2018, where we focused on major research projects basically in the university, and then 2019 on global transformation, and 2020 waste to energy. And this, of course, is our 2021 version. We also run Indy Energy Week, which is a campus-wide community and student-oriented event aimed at raising the awareness of many topics related to global energy. These are often themed in any given year. Other programs include bringing distinguished lecturers to campus, partnerships with local schools, and providing opportunities for Mishawaka High School students to conduct research and so on. So now I want to just say a little bit about a few of the research programs that our faculty are conducting that relate specifically to the topic of this research symposium. And the first of those is the Engineering Research Center for Innovative and Strategic Transformation of Alkane Resources. This is funded by the National Science Foundation. It's a very big project with a lot of partners. You can see on the bottom of the slide, University of New Mexico, Northwestern, Notre Dame, and UT Austin, in addition to Purdue. And the focus is on shale gas. Shale gas is it's quite an abundant commodity in the United States, and it has the potential of being a lower carbon footprint bridge towards a more sustainable energy economy, a bridge from coal, in particular oil and natural gas. So the focus of this research effort, which as I mentioned, brings together many researchers over several institutions, is mastering the essential science and engineering challenges of converting light hydrocarbons from shale resources to liquid chemicals and fuels. The project is Breakthrough Electrolytes for Energy Storage, and this is part of an Energy Frontier Research Center funded by the Department of Energy that's being led by Case Western University. So Notre Dame is one of numerous universities in this center. Probably most everybody is aware that the major deployable renewable energy supplies of wind and solar are intermittent. Sun goes down every night, unless you're in the high Arctic in the summer, for example, but sun goes down every night and the wind stops blowing early. And these intermittency issues are restricting the deployment of these renewable energy sources. So there's a lot of emphasis on developing better storage capabilities. And this particular project is focused on developing a better energy storage capacity by understanding the fundamentals of electron transfer reactions in specific solvents that have nanoparticles in them. So the researchers are working on harnessing atomistic to macroscopic phenomena through theory and experiments to create specialized redox flow batteries that are needed to transform energy storage. Another project is process intensification by a one-step plasma-assisted synthesis of liquid chemicals from light hydrocarbons. It's funded by the Department of Energy, and the lead for this is Notre, the National Energy Technology Lab out in Denver. The focus is using plasmas. Plasmas are free-moving atoms and electrons to synthesize value-added chemicals from light hydrocarbon resources. Another project is Emerging Frontiers in Research and Innovation, distributed chemical manufacturing, next generation low global warming refrigerants. Many of you will know that refrigerants are, especially those that were used in the past, are very potent greenhouse gases, and they're also have in the past been very harmful to ozone in the atmosphere. The funding for this is from the National Science Foundation. It's led by the University of Kansas with our participation. So the focus is on the discovery and synthesis of new ionic liquids that can be used to separate, recycle, and convert high global warming potential refrigerant mixtures into safe products. Ionic liquids are basically they're salts that are liquid at very low temperatures, including in many cases room temperature. Design of new polymer platform for engineering fast and selective molecular transport and membranes project that's funded by the National Science Foundation is using focus on using flexible polymer platforms to engineer fast and selective gas transport in membranes. And related project regulating gas transport and molecularly engineered polymer membranes funded by the Department of Energy is focusing on using model polymer networks with controlled architectural regularity and targeted synthetic motifs to determine the impact of cross-link inhomogeneity on the gas transport and cross-link polymer membranes. All right, so now I want to turn to not what our researchers are doing so much as what the university has been doing to make the University of Notre Dame's operations more sustainable relative specifically to CO2 emissions. The aspirational goals of the university are subject to change and evolve through time, and I think are likely to become even more aggressive as time goes on. But at the moment, the aspirational goals relative to emissions are a 50% per gross square foot reduction from 2005 levels by 2030, an 83% reduction per gross square foot from 2005 levels by 2050, and eventually to become carbon neutral. This last line, this last bullet, 83% by 2050, and eventually become carbon neutral. There's considerable debate ongoing now as to whether this timeline can be accelerated, and perhaps carbon neutrality can be achieved even before this time frame. Notre Dame, of course, has a power plant. Its primary purpose over the years has been production of steam. And steam's used to heat our buildings and also to cool our buildings. And as a byproduct, it's also generated electricity. Currently, Notre Dame's power plant produces about half the electricity that's used on campus, and the other half is purchased from Indiana Michigan Power. So when we think about the university's CO2 emissions, we need to also think about what Indiana Michigan's power emissions are. And as of a few months ago, this is actually, I'll give you an update on this in a bit, but as of a few months ago, this was the mix of fuels going into the electricity that were arriving on campus: 37% coal, 50% nuclear, that's coming from the Cook plant on Lake Michigan, 1% natural gas, and 6% from renewable sources. So the university, starting in 2008, embarked on a series of planned and deliberate actions to reduce CO2 emissions. There were a lot of actions concerning other aspects of sustainability. I'm restricting my comments to those that relate specifically to energy consumption and therefore CO2 emissions. So the Energy Conservation Measures Program was developed, and there have been multiple stages. So the very first stage was retrofitting 25 buildings. This led to reducing electricity use by 5.2 million kilowatt hours. The steam and chilled water used by over 30,000 million British thermal units, with an overall reduction of around 4,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emitted to the atmosphere. So basically, this was low-hanging fruit, very inefficient systems, leaky systems, and so on that were repaired. 2011 to 13 was the second phase. So that continued the first phase, which was expanded to 55 buildings instead of the initial 25. Complete conversion to LED lighting, which is much more efficient than the conventional incandescent lights and so on that were used. Reducing the flow rates through fume hoods. Our chemistry labs in particular use a lot of fume hoods, and they suck air out of the building and push it up into the atmosphere. So any gains that can be made in reducing that amount of air, reduce the amount of heat that we're losing or cooling that we're losing to the atmosphere. Motors and pumps, wherever possible, replaced with higher efficiency models. And this was a good play financially as well as CO2 emissions wise. The annual savings achieved were about $1 million, and the CO2 reductions were around 14,900 tons per year. Third phase, 2014 and through 2016, basically continuing with the first and second phases, also moving to variable speed air compressors, different further penetration of LED lighting, introduction of energy metering at various buildings and locations on campus, changing laboratory ventilation, basically understanding building performance at a big data level so that they could be better optimized. These various steps led to a further CO2 emission reduction of around 12,000 tons per year. And the fourth phase, which we're in today, building retro commissioning, also, major upgrades in our actual physical plant, where gas turbine technology is brought in, combined cycle gas turbines that produce both electricity and steam, and much more efficiently than the old power plant boilers that we used to use. And also recovering and regenerating energy from existing sources, just distributed over campus to the extent possible. Other aspects were solar voltaic, hydroelectric, and geothermal, which I'm going to now discuss, and I'll be discussing in just a moment, actually. First, I wanted to show you where we are relative to reductions in emissions. I mentioned that the initial goal was to achieve a 50% reduction in carbon emissions per gross square
All right, looks like we lost. There we are. You're back.
I'm back. Sorry. I'll start at the beginning of the slide again. Can you see my slide, Ginger?
No. Would you like me to share it?
Well, let me just try. sharing it again.
If not, I can share it. Okay, there we go.
So, yeah, before moving on to some of the specific large scale solar and so on that we're doing, I wanted to mention that these are the actual numbers in terms of CO2 emissions. First of all, I wanted to emphasize that we've achieved a 50% reduction in carbon emissions per square foot already. The goal was by 2030, but it was achieved in 2020. That doesn't mean we'll have still achieved it in 2030 though. As we build new buildings, they have to be very efficient, and other things that could be beyond our control may have an impact. For example, if the Cook nuclear power plant stopped producing CO2 emission-free electricity, that would possibly be replaced by more fossil fuel consumption by the utility, which would increase our CO2 emissions as a result. Anyway, the aspirational path was what was kind of sketched out a decade ago as to, it included projections for new buildings and so on, and it gave us a pathway towards what we had set as goals. And then the dark line on the graph is what's actually taken place. So you can see that our CO2 emissions were reduced dramatically relative to the aspirational path initially. And a lot of that had to do with a change in fuel, which I'll come back to in a bit. But we're nowhere near our ultimate goal of 83% reduction by 2050 and eventual total carbon neutrality. But a few of the initiatives. Just last month, the St. Joseph Solar Farm opened. Some of you may have seen this if you've driven past campus. It is just to the east of campus, just to the east of Mishawaka, beside the toll road. It opened in May, just last month, and it's a 20 megawatt photovoltaic solar array. Notre Dame doesn't own this array. It belongs to Indiana Michigan Power, but Notre Dame helped make it happen by providing the real estate for it to be on and agreeing to purchase 40% of the output for the next 30 years. That should provide on the order of 20% of current purchase power. So IMP's fuel mix is changing. I showed it on an earlier slide. I don't know what it is today now. It'll be a little while, I think, before we get that sorted out. But clearly the renewable portion is going up and the coal will be going down. I think natural gas is going up as well. Another university initiative is a solar system that was put on our Kenmore warehouse. It's not on campus, but it's a facility that the university uses, and it's 194,000 kilowatt hours of electricity annually, about a third of what the facility uses. General Electric helped us put solar panels on Stinson Rimmick Hall of Engineering a decade ago. Those are a great opportunity to take students up and show them how these systems work and provide 50 kilowatts of solar power. The 50 kilowatt solar panel system provides about 55,000 kilowatt hours of carbon-free electricity each year. You may have heard we're installing hydroelectric generators in the St. Joseph River. The dam is already there. We haven't changed the flow of the river or anything of that nature. But what we have been doing is installing hydroelectric generation capacity, which will bring electricity directly to campus. It's not going to go on the grid, but rather it'll come straight to campus. And it's going to be about 7% of our university's electrical needs, offsetting around 9,700 tons of carbon dioxide annually. And during various construction projects where dirt was moved around and so on, such as the construction of the academic buildings adjacent to Notre Dame Stadium, university took advantage of the opportunity to put in a geothermal well field. So there's 3 fields: East Quad, South Campus, which is south of the stadium, and Rickey Fields. These geothermal fields are, well, they're not energy generating. They're really more of a efficiency play, but they do save substantial CO2 emissions, as you can see identified there on the left. A few years ago, Father Jenkins, the university president, declared that Notre Dame would cease to burn coal completely. And I'm happy to announce, for those of you that may not know, this has been achieved. The very last of the coal went into the power plant in 2019, October 14th specifically, and now the plant burns predominantly natural gas, and furnace oil is there as a backup in the case that our natural gas supply was to fail. So that concludes my comments. I hope that they came through okay despite some internet glitches. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you, Peter. We will now open the floor for questions. So if you'd like to use the raise hand function, I'll call on you to ask your question, or you can type your question into the chat function. So as the questions start coming in, Peter, it seems like, you know, we talked about some of the efficiency plays and kind of the low-hanging fruit for achieving this more carbon neutrality. What do you think some of the next steps should be for the university?
Well, this is a very difficult question to answer because the efficiencies have been substantially improved, and you know, there's only one dam that we can put hydro in, and solar is relatively limited in northern Indiana, etc. So it's going to be a significant challenge, in fact, to get to that 83% reduction. We may, in some cases, purchase offsets, invest in clean energy and other locations where it might be more feasible. That because that can help us achieve the net reduction that we want. My own field of research is in nuclear energy, and I think that there's a real chance of turning to small modular reactors. Not right away, but maybe in the 15 to 20 year time frame. A single small modular reactor could potentially power the whole campus with no emissions.
All right, so there's a question coming in, is what can you tell us about the efficiency or non-efficiency of the steam tunnels and what can be done about them?
My internet had dropped out. Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. What can you tell us about the efficiency or the non-efficiency of the steam tunnels and what can be done about them?
Well, I'm not the right person to answer that. It's really a operational question, and I don't know the details of those operations, but I do know that the university has invested a substantial amount of money in putting dispersing systems around campus that can capture heat and chilled water at times when it might be relatively inexpensive to produce, and use it at other times, etc. The kind of combined cycle power system that we use at the power plant is really very efficient. If you think of a typical electricity generating facility where they're burning fossil fuels, heat is just a waste product, really, in those cases there. I have returned, but I don't know where that dropped.
All right, so are there any more questions for our speaker? So the next question, Peter, is does Notre Dame plan to purchase more renewable energy from AEP or on their own systems?
Well, it's going to be a mix. We, for example, as I already said, we're currently constructing our own generating system in the St. Joseph River. That won't be going through AEP, is my understanding. It'll be directly transmitted to campus. I can't come.
Right. So to finish Peter's thoughts there, I believe what he was saying is that the renewable energy from AEP and owning their own systems, it would probably be a mix. And so, you know, the university has several working groups that come together that are made up of faculty, staff, and students that are all working toward this type of understanding and what this university should do next. So I'll give him just a second to see if he comes back. All right, well, if there are no other speakers or questions for Peter, we will go ahead and thank him for giving us this talk. And when he comes back, I'm sure he'll appreciate your thanks. So we will go ahead and move to our next speaker.